It's wonderful to be here. I'm Dr. Elias Sterling. My background is in medicine. I spent decades as a physician, specializing in geriatrics and physiology. My role here is to really bring the clinical why to our conversation. And over those decades in the clinic, I learned that the symptoms we often fear, the stiffness, the fatigue, the changing sleep patterns, they're rarely just failures of the machine.
No.
They're communications. Your body is talking to you.
Hello and welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Kiko Tanaka. I'm speaking to you today from a place of calm, picturing a warm, sun-drenched room where we can sit together. In my family's tradition, and in the Japanese heritage I hold so dear, we believe that health isn't a sprint. It's a rhythm. It's about understanding the seasons of a life that's been lived fully and respecting the wisdom your body has gathered over decades. Today, we are going to explore a topic that feels incredibly relevant for where we are in our lives right now. We're weaving together two sources that might seem like they're worlds apart.
They do, on the surface.
On one side, we have the insights of Dr. Gabor Maté, a physician who has just revolutionized how we think about stress and the nervous system. And on the other, a concept from my own culture called ma.
Ma.
It's a Japanese word for space or the interval.
It's a fascinating combination. You have Mate's, hard science on trauma and autoimmunity, and you're pairing it with an aesthetic principle, but they speak the same language.
They really do. And the reason we're bringing this to you today is not to give you a medical lecture or, a list of things to fix.
No, it's the opposite.
It's the opposite. We want to look at how your long-standing habits, maybe even the things you judge yourself for, are actually brilliant adaptations your body made years and years ago. So if you're looking for a space that values depth over speed, I think you're in the right place.
Let's get into it. To really understand why we feel the way we do in our 60s or 70s, we have to look at the environment we spent the last half century just swimming in.
Yeah.
Dr. Maté writes so much about this idea of the myth of normal.
It's a provocative title. It suggests that what we see all around us isn't actually natural.
Precisely. Maté argues that what modern society considers normal, the constant rushing, the competition, the disconnection from our own gut feelings, is actually toxic to human biology.
Toxic?
He points to the data. Something like 70% of American adults are on at least one prescription medication.
That is just a staggering number. I mean, if 70% of the population is medicated, you can't call that an individual failure anymore.
Exactly. If you have a laboratory and 70% of the bacteria in your petri dish are struggling, you don't blame the bacteria.
You check the culture.
You check the culture. You check the environment. Maté is saying our culture is acting like a toxic laboratory, and it's making the organisms sick.
In Japanese longevity traditions, we view this very similarly. We don't look at the body as a machine that breaks down because of a bad part. We look at the soil. We look at the rhythm. If the rhythm of the environment is frantic, well, the body's rhythm disrupts.
And the science has finally caught up to that ancestral wisdom. This is where we need to talk about psychoneuroimmunology. It's a mouthful of a word.
It's a great Scrabble word. But let's break down what it actually means for all of us listening.
Essentially, it is the scientific proof that you cannot separate the mind from the body. For centuries, Western medicine treated them as separate things.
Right. You go to the psychiatrist for your sadness and the rheumatologist for your joint pain.
Exactly. But psychoneuroimmunology, or PNI for short, it shows that the emotional centers of your brain are physically wired into your immune system, your hormonal apparatus, and your entire nervous system.
So they're one continuous unit.
They're one unit. When you experience stress, which is an emotional state, your hypothalamus signals your pituitary, which signals your adrenals to release cortisol.
And that's the stress hormone.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That cortisol then floats through your blood and directly suppresses your immune cells and increases inflammation. So when we talk about a lifetime of stress, we are not just talking about feeling overwhelmed. We're talking about a physiological cascade that affects inflammation, digestion, and our body's ability to repair itself.
And for those listening who have lived through decades of, high-pressure careers or caregiving, that just hits home. You realize that the stress wasn't just in your head.
Not at all.
It was marinating your organs.
It was. And that accumulation,
it
so often shows up later in life.
In my heritage, we view health not as fixing a broken machine, but maintaining a rhythm. When we get sick or when we feel that heavy fatigue that, doesn't go away with a nap, we don't ask what is broken. We ask, where has the rhythm been interrupted? It's a subtle shift. We respect the body's quiet work. We believe that darkness and stillness are actual medicines, that they're necessary for repair.
Which brings us directly to how we define trauma. Because I think for a lot of people in our generation, that word trauma, it feels too big.
It does.
We think of war, we think of terrible abuse, and we think, well, I had a roof over my head, I'm fine, I don't have trauma.
Right. I had a normal childhood, or my parents did their best.
And usually they did. But Dr. Maté offers a definition that is just incredibly liberating. He says, trauma isn't just the bad things that happen to you. It is also the good things that didn't happen.
That's such a crucial distinction, the absence of something.
The absence of attunement, the absence of being held emotionally when you were scared. Maté shares a very personal story about this in his work. He was born in Budapest, Hungary in 1944. He was a Jewish infant under the Nazi occupation.
A terrifying atmosphere to be born into.
Unimaginable. His mother was, of course, in a state of terror and grief. She called the pediatrician one day because Gabor, as a baby, wouldn't stop crying. And the pediatrician said something that it really illustrates this point. He said, all my Jewish babies are crying.
Oh my goodness, because they were absorbing the atmosphere.
Exactly. Gabor wasn't being physically hurt in that crib, but he was absorbing his mother's terror. He was experiencing the absence of a calm, regulated parent, not because she didn't love him, but because she simply couldn't provide it.
She couldn't.
And Maté explains that when an infant is in that kind of stress, they can't fight and they can't flee. They are helpless. So what is the only defense mechanism left?
To tune out. To leave the building mentally.
They dissociate. Maté was diagnosed with ADD in his 50s, and he realized that his so-called distracted mind wasn't some genetic disease.
No.
It was a brilliant coping mechanism he developed as an infant to survive unbearable stress. It was a survival strategy.
I love that reframing. It just shifts the entire narrative from I have a defect to I have a shield.
It was a shield. But the problem is, as we age, we're still holding that shield up 60 or 70 years later when the war is over. We're still tuning out or distracting ourselves because the nervous system learned that presence equals pain.
This speaks so deeply to the concept of the sensitive child, or as we might say now, the sensitive elder. Sensitivity is so often critiqued in our culture. We're told to have a thicker skin.
We are.
But Maté explains that sensitivity is just the ability to feel more. He uses this analogy. If I tap you on the shoulder, it's nothing. But if you have a burn on your shoulder, that same tap is excruciating.
That's right.
The event is the same, but the feeling is different because of the wound. If you have spent your life being distracted or checking out or feeling overwhelmed by noise, I just want to invite you to see that not as a flaw in your character. It was a protective rhythm your body learned a long, long time ago.
And that protection, it often comes at a very high cost. This leads us to what Maté calls the tragic conflict. And this is something I saw constantly in my practice, especially with seniors who have spent a lifetime being the rock for their families.
The ones who hold it all together, the responsible ones.
Yes. Maté says we have two fundamental needs as humans. Need one is attachment. We need connection to survive. Biology absolutely demands it. Need two is authenticity, being able to listen to our gut, express our needs, say no.
But in a stressful environment, those two needs clash.
Tragically, if a child or even an adult has to choose between being authentic, say expressing anger or setting a boundary and maintaining an attachment, being loved, being the good wife or husband, they'll choose attachment every single time.
We sacrifice our truth to keep the connection.
We do. And here is the clinical consequence that I want our listeners to really absorb. When you suppress healthy anger, that gut feeling that says this is too much or this is wrong, you are physiologically suppressing your immune system.
Because, as we established with P&I, they are the same system.
They're the same system. There was a study Maté cites. It involved women who were happily married. They followed them for 10 years. The researchers found that the women who silenced their emotions, who self-silenced to keep the peace during conflict, had 4 times the mortality rate of those who spoke up.
4 times.
Yeah.
That connects the dots between personality and pathology in a way we rarely talk about.
It links that lifelong habit of niceness, of always being the one who accommodates, to autoimmune issues, chronic fatigue, and inflammation in later life. Your body eventually says no for you because you couldn't.
That really hits home. It makes you look back at decades of keeping the peace with so much compassion for your body. You realize your body has been bearing the weight of all that silence.
It really has. And if this kind of evidence-based, compassionate look at your own history is resonating with you, I gently invite you to subscribe to our community. We explore these topics not to diagnose you, but really to validate the life you've lived.
So if we've spent decades suppressing things to stay attached, we often develop what we call bad habits or coping mechanisms. Maté talks about addiction, but he defines it pretty broadly, doesn't he? It's not just about substances.
He does. He defines it as any behavior that gives you temporary relief, creates a craving, but has negative long-term consequences. He says instead of asking why the addiction, we should be asking why the pain. He shares his own story of being a successful doctor, revered in his field, yet he had a shopping addiction. He would spend thousands of dollars on classical music CDs.
Classical music, it sounds so benign compared to what we usually think of as an addiction.
It does, but look at the behavior. He would hide the receipts from his wife. He would lie about where he was. He would leave patients in the waiting room to go buy a specific recording. He was trying to fill a void. And he introduces this concept of the stupid friend.
The stupid friend. It's such a disarming term.
It makes me smile every time. He says our coping mechanisms, whether it's overeating, overworking, shutting down, or that extra glass of wine at night, are like a friend who helped us survive childhood. They numbed the pain when we were helpless. So they are a friend. But they are a stupid friend because they don't know that time has passed. They don't know you are 70 years old now. They don't know you're safe. They're still trying to protect the child you were.
That is just so tender. It takes the shame right out of it. It's not a demon. It's just an outdated friend who hasn't checked the calendar.
Exactly. An outdated friend.
And this is where I think the Japanese concept of ma becomes the medicine. In the West, when we identify a bad habit or a stupid friend, our instinct is to cut it out, to attack it, to fix it.
Right. We declare war on ourselves. We try to use willpower to crush the habit.
Exactly. But in Japanese aesthetics, we have ma. It's often translated as a negative space, but that's not quite right. It's not an empty void. It is an active, charged gap. Think of the silence between notes in music. Without that silence, the music is just noise. Or think of the light shining through a gate. The structure of the gate makes the light beautiful.
It gives it definition.
Yes. So when we meet this stupid friend, this urge to check out or overeat or snap at our spouse, instead of attacking it, we can apply ma. We create a pause.
A pause.
Just a breath. We don't have to fix the habit immediately. We just introduce a little bit of space between the impulse and the action. Maté talks about this too. That gap is where our freedom lies. And I really believe that this phase of life, elderhood, is the ultimate ma.
I like that, the ultimate ma. How do you see that playing out?
Well, the frantic building phase of life is done. The career ladder, the raising of small children. We are now in the interval.
The space between.
The space between. And instead of rushing to fill it with busy work to prove we're still relevant, we can inhabit that space. We can let the nervous system finally feel safe enough to be authentic.
That is a profound reframing of aging. No, we've lost the role of the elder in modern society. We talk about the elderly, which implies decline, fragility, someone who needs care.
Right.
But traditional cultures like yours have always revered the elder for their wisdom, for their rhythm.
Yes. The elder is the keeper of the rhythm. The elder is the one who sits still enough to see what is actually happening.
And the good news from a neurological perspective is that healing, that return to wholeness, is possible at any age. We used to think the brain was fixed. Now we know about neuroplasticity. The brain can change until our very last breath.
It's never too late to rewire the stupid friend.
Never. There's an incredible story Maté shares about the great niece of Hermann Goering. Now, Goering was a leading Nazi, a monster of history. His great niece carried this enormous generational trauma, shame, and guilt. And she reached out to Maté, a Jewish survivor of the Holocaust, to thank him for his work.
That gives me chills, the descendant of the perpetrator and the survivor.
It's astounding. But they met, and they found connection. And it illustrates that even the deepest, most entrenched generational wounds can be healed. If that connection can happen between those two poles of history, then we can certainly heal the rift between our own mind and body.
We can make peace with our own history.
Absolutely.
It really speaks to the difference between loneliness and solitude. I think many of us fear aging because we fear loneliness.
And it's a valid fear. Our culture does isolate seniors.
But Ma teaches us about solitude. In Japanese architecture, we have the engawa. It's a wooden veranda that runs around the house. It's not quite inside and it's not quite outside. It's a transitional space.
Ah, I see.
It allows you to sit and observe the garden without being exposed to the storm.
A protective space.
Yes. And I think elderhood is our engawa. It's a time to establish boundaries, to say, I'm going to sit here in this rhythm and observe. When we slow down, it's not a symptom of decline. It is a practice of Ma. It's a deliberate choice to engage with the world through discernment rather than reaction.
Discernment rather than reaction. That is the key. When we react, we're usually operating from that old programming, that stupid friend. When we discern, we're operating from our adult present self.
So how do we put this into practice? We've covered a lot of deep territory here, from PNI to Nazis to Japanese architecture.
We have. And I want to leave our listeners with a practical approach. It's not a protocol. It's not a diet. It's a mindset shift. The goal is not to fix your personality. You have lived decades of adaptation. You survived. That is a success.
Yes, a success.
The goal now is simply to reconnect with the gut feelings you had to silence. Maté calls this compassionate inquiry. It's very simple. When a symptom rises, maybe it's that flare-up of pain or sudden wave of anxiety or that urge to numb out, instead of immediately taking a pill or judging yourself, you just ask a question.
What's the question?
You ask, what is this trying to tell me? Not, how do I make this stop? But what does this pain want me to know? What is this anxiety protecting me from?
It's like treating the symptom like a messenger at the gate.
Exactly. Maybe the fatigue is telling you that you've overcommitted again to please others. Maybe the stiffness is asking you to just hold still and rest, to embrace the darkness for a little bit.
I love that. It validates that you have nothing left to prove. You have lived a life of responsibility. You've carried the weight. Now, you get to put it down and listen.
That's right. And healing is simply that reconnecting the parts of ourselves that we had to cut off to survive.
We are committed to helping you maintain this rhythm. If you'd like to keep this continuity of care in your life, we invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications. Think of it not as another email, but as a gentle reminder to return to yourself.
It's just a way to ensure you don't have to do this inquiry alone. We're here with you.
As we close today, I want to leave you with one final thought on Ma. We often think we need to say more, do more, explain more. But the Japanese aesthetic teaches us that sometimes the strongest message is conveyed through what is intentionally left blank. The silence you allow yourself today is not empty. It is full of you.
Beautifully said.
Stay vibrant.
Stay vibrant.